To me, this is not evidence of anything. But what it did remind me of instantly, though, was that tree structure that we had found in Kentucky. And that's where we had gotten some of our most interesting DNA results.
From attempting to draw out the fabled cryptid with the use of all the resources available to them, to the exploration of some strange structures in what seems to be the marked-out territory of the strange creature, here's how Dr. Mireya Mayor almost died during an encounter with the legendary cryptid that is Bigfoot. When it comes to the legend of Bigfoot, it's clear that there are those who will go to any lengths to prove that this creature truly exists. For centuries now, the search for Bigfoot has been going on, with many people claiming to have had encounters with the strange creature while wandering in one of the many woods and forests found in the continent of North America. Funny enough, though, we have never been able to ascertain that this legendary creature is real. Much like many other legendary cryptids found all over the world, the only proof of their existence seems to be either one anecdotal tale to the other. If it isn't some incredible story about running into the giant, hairy, bipedal creature somewhere in one of these woods being used as evidence, it's the blurry pictures or the grainy videos that just don't cut it when it comes to proving that this creature is real. Despite such controversies surrounding the existence of this creature, we find that there are still people who are able to block out the noise created by the doubters.
In isolation, these findings aren't incredibly significant.
As they do this, they have leaned towards anything that would help prove that this creature is real. Some even go as far as dedicating their lives to the study of everything concerning this creature. Some even go further than others by wandering into the woods to search for this creature themselves. That is why we admire the members of the Expedition Bigfoot team. With members such as Dr. Mireya Mayor, the highly respected primatologist on the team with years of fieldwork experience, there is a feeling that it may only be a matter of time before the mystery of Bigfoot is brought to an end. Primate pheromones and Bigfoot mating call, a trap too enticing to resist. Just take a look at the time the good doctor and the rest of the team were out in one of the many woods found in North America. Despite the fact that she was the one watching from the base, while Bryce and Russell went out into the dark, freezing woods to carry on with their search for the legendary cryptid, it is clear that she was just as excited as her counterparts out in the woods. As the pair made their way through the forest, they asked Dr. Mayor if she had noticed anything that they hadn't with the use of the thermal camera in her possession. Although she replied by stating that she couldn't see anything out there, she couldn't shake off that eerie feeling that maybe they were not alone at all.
We've had a lot of success using primate pheromones in the past, but we're going to add another layer to this strategy.
Eager to put that theory to the test, the team figured that rather than using primate pheromones to draw out the creature, something that has proven to be successful in many of the expeditions that the team had set off on in the past, they decided to take a different approach by making use of these primate pheromones and a Bigfoot mating call as well. Well, as close to a Bigfoot mating call as they could imagine. They believed that if there was actually a Bigfoot nearby, their scheme may actually be too appealing for the bipedal cryptid to resist. Once everything was in place, Bryce started this experiment by releasing the blast of the mating call, hoping that this and its combination with the primate pheromones would prove to be too attractive for the legendary beast to ignore. Although the mating call sounded more like the ancient screeching and wailing from a frightening creature from the void, the team must have both been afraid and excited when they heard the rustling of the trees nearby. Hoping to spot the source of the disturbance, Dr. Mayor looked around, hoping to find the site of anything that may prove to be the creature that she had dedicated so much time looking for. She searched around frantically, a move that would initially cause her to miss anything that may have been out there. However, when she zoomed into Bryce's location, she all of a sudden noticed the heat signature of a figure that was way too close to Bryce for comfort. Alarmed, she tried to tell Bryce that there was something leering at him nearby, but somehow Bryce seemed to feel it for himself. In fact, he was so uncomfortable with the moment that his skin began to crawl. Just as he was about to question what on earth may have been going on, something that was way faster than he could imagine suddenly shot its way through the darkness. The entire moment was over before Bryce even got a handle of what was going on. Stunned speechless, Bryce had to regain his composure before he asked Dr. Mireya if she saw what just happened. What he would find is that the good doctor was equally as shocked, not just because of what just happened, but also because she noticed that there was a heat signature about 150 feet west from him.
I'm picking something up on the thermal behind you to the left, about 150 feet.
With that in mind, Bryce was forced to wonder if this was the same creature, because how could it be so fast that it was able to get so far away from him? Looking for answers, Dr. Mireya wanted to know if Bryce could see the creature from where he was. Alas, he could not see anything at all. Despite this, he just could not relax because he was certain that he was not alone. He knew that there was something out there. He knew that it was watching, waiting for him to loosen his guard so that it could pounce. He was certain of this, even if he could not see the creature. Hoping to get some answers, Mireya scanned the area, hoping to pick up the heat signature of the mysterious creature lurking in the darkness with her thermal camera. Strangely enough, she could pick up some sort of heat signature, but she wasn't sure what it was. Hoping to clarify this despite how frightening the moment was, Bryce decided to bend down and rise back up so she can clarify for them. Alarmingly, the heat signature did not move when Bryce moved. Surely it was clear that she was not looking at Bryce. No, she was looking at the strange creature that was lurking in the darkness. Perhaps even stranger, the heat signature stayed for a moment or two before it suddenly vanished from Dr. Mireya's view. In fact, it was almost as if it was never even there to begin with. Crazy stuff, especially as all it did was add more eeriness and mystery when it comes to the search for the legendary cryptid. Exploration of the clearing. Once everything calmed down somewhat, Dr. Mireya and the rest of the team attempted to push on with their search for the legendary cryptid, starting from tracking down whatever was lurking around them in the darkness. So while Russell made his way through the old logging roads back to the point that was discovered about 5 miles away, you'd find that Dr. Mireya had begun to make her way even deeper into the dark forests, eager to make some progress as they pushed on with their search for Bigfoot.
I have to figure out exactly where this thing went. So I want to scour this entire area.
Exhausted, she could feel the strain of her movement as she got more and more worn down by the minute. This was not an easy task at all. Not only was the woods dark or freezing, it was also the unnerving nature of the silence that engulfed the entire forest. Not wanting to be overwhelmed by the occasion, Dr. Mireya decided that perhaps the best thing she could do in the moment was to head west. To her, she was hoping that this would help her see if she can find any tracks or any other signs of life. Thinking back to the previous night, Dr. Mireya realized that this incident reminded her of the signature that she read on her thermal camera just the night before. What's more frightening about what she remembered about the night before was that this creature seemed to stand upright, and it seemed to move in a strange manner as well. Exactly what on earth was out there in the darkness of these woods? Although she must have been frightened out of her wits, Dr. Mireya Mayor realized that she will have to scan the entire area. That was the only way she could make any progress in the search for Bigfoot at that point in time. Right now, she was hoping to find the creature's tracks so that she could follow it to where it went. She must have been excited when these tracks eventually led her to a strange clearing in the middle of nowhere. This strange clearing seemed to be surrounded by towering trees that seemed to be hovering over her like domineering towers. You guys can only imagine how creepy the scene must have been for her. Sure, the sun must have risen at that point, but even the illuminated nature of the day could not distract her from how precarious the situation could be if she was not careful about what she was doing out there. This point became more glaring when she happened to notice these huge stumps that were in the middle of the clearing.
If whatever I saw last night was using these old hollowed out tree stumps for cover, that could explain how it was able to disappear from the thermal so quickly.
Large and hollowed out, some of these stumps were even larger than they looked. As interesting as the dimensions of the tree was, what was even more interesting was that the barks of these trees seemed to be charred, as though they had been set on fire some time ago. Add the eerie stillness to the situation, and the tree that Dr. Mireya was standing in just seemed even stranger than ever. This was especially the case when she realized that not only can you not see what is going on outside the tree when you are inside it, but also because you can actually remain hidden from the world when you are hiding inside the tree. Thinking about the concealing abilities of the hollowed-out tree stumps, one can see how stumps as large and wide as the one that Dr. Mireya got into may have been the best hiding spots you could ever imagine. especially for someone or something that did not want to be found at all. Soon, Dr. Mireya realized that maybe the thing that was running riot with them last night may have disappeared so quickly because it ran off into one of these hollowed-out tree stumps. Looking to get some more answers, Dr. Mireya decided to explore some of the other tree stumps in the area. What is strange about this is that when she approached one of the hollows, she'd be hit by a weird smell. What was more interesting about the smell is that the deeper she got into the clearing, the more she realized that it was not far away. Looking for some more clues though, Mireya pushed on with her exploration of the hollowed-out tree stumps. As a result, she was delighted to find fresh leaf pilings in a bedding area. As amazing as this has been for them, they were forced not to get their hopes up when Mireya discovered a strand of animal hair at the scene. What was interesting about this was that this strand of hair told her that the creature was not far away from them. In fact, it also told her that this must have been the creature that was stalking them just last night.
I don't know what kind of animal it was, but it's possible that it was what I saw on the thermal last night.
Strange structure in the bushes. You can only imagine the satisfaction that she felt when she bagged the hair samples. Confident that an animal had just gone past the area without knowing exactly what animal it was, Dr. Mireya still remained hopeful about her search and how it may draw her and the rest of the team towards the legendary cryptid. At the same time, it seemed as though Russell was tracking something that was about 2 miles east of Bryce and Dr. Mireya Mayor. Soon he came across this strange structure that was in the middle of the forest for no apparent reason. What's strange about this structure is that although it was definitely out of place, it definitely was not made by any human. It just didn't look like a structure that was made by any humans. Looking shabby with no extra coverings, this was something that was of interest to Russell and the rest of the team. They just could not ignore the fact that if it was humans who made this thing, it would have a lot more structure that would be able to provide it the protection that would be desired from any decent shelter. As if the structure was not weird enough, Russell found that the structure was truly bizarre, especially as it seemed to have what looked like a tree in it. Upon closer inspection, it was actually a skull that was made out of wood. Sure, it took the edge off a little bit once they calm set. The team began to wonder why someone or something would put this there. Looking at the structure, Russell began to suspect that whatever built this thing had to have thumbs, whether or not it was Bigfoot. Looking for more answers, he decided to push on with his exploration of the area. As this was going on, Dr. Mireya and Bryce were also coming across their own large structure with tree limbs as well. What were the chances? And again, who was planting these things out there in the middle of nowhere? Standing upright in a strange manner, it was clear that some unseen force in whatever form must have put this thing up there.
It would have taken a crew of men to put this thing together.
And if it had any links to the search for the legendary creature that is Bigfoot, they might as well find out who put it there and why they did so in the first place. Looking at the strange nature of the structure, Bryce thought that this may have been some signal of some sort. As there weren't any cut marks on the structure, and as they were in the middle of nowhere in the woods, Dr. Mireya Mayor thought it may not be so weird to find a strange stack of sticks in the woods. What she could not ignore, though, was that this was still a strange structure to be out there, no matter how hard they tried to look at it from a different angle. In fact, they had to admit that finding such a thing out there was not so common after all. Looking for more answers, Dr. Mireya and Bryce continued to scan the area. That is when Bryce just happened to notice the sticks that seemed to be tangled in a delicate webbing. The strange scene was made eerie by the spider webs that surrounded them, because it told them that whatever put the structure together had not been there for an extended period of time. In fact, it seemed as though nobody had been in these parts of the woods, let alone the people or forces that put those sticks up together. With that in mind, they were certain that someone or something put those sticks up there. The issue was that they could not figure out who or what could have done it, and how long ago too. The pair tried to figure out who or what exactly could have done this, but they could not figure out any species that are local to the area that could do such a thing. Well, the obvious answer to them at the time was perhaps this was not the work of any ordinary animal. No, this was done by some animal that had some sort of intelligence more advanced by the normal animal. Eager not to miss anything that may give him the answers that he needed, Bryce decided that it may be best for him to study the sticks some more so that he can see if there are any hints that he may have missed. Upon further analysis, he quickly realized that these were not ordinary sticks. In fact, they seemed to be arrows that were pointing at something that they could not determine at that point in time.
Yeah, this to me eliminates the idea that those first two structures were perhaps natural. This was put here for a purpose.
Eager to get some more answers out of the situation, he decided to follow the arrows to wherever they take him, hoping and praying that they may finally lead him to the legendary cryptid that is Bigfoot. Elsewhere, about 2 miles northeast, we found that Russell was still trying to track down the strange noise that had come from across the river in the area. It must have been annoying for the team, especially as their vision was heavily limited. In fact, they were only able to see what their limited torchlight would allow them to see. Sure, this must have been exciting because it allowed them to look at the spiderwebs, but they needed some more information if they were going to make the most of their time in the woods looking for Bigfoot. As they searched for some answers, Russell suddenly snapped to attention because he just realized that there was something strange lurking in the woods. This was a frightening moment for Russell, but he knew that he could not let fear overcome him. Rather than succumbing to the sinking feeling in his stomach, he decided to push on in the hopes that fear will not let him down. At the same time, Dr. Mireya and Bryce just happened to come across another tree out there in the woods. This time, though, this one had this smaller pile of sticks that was against it. What's more interesting about this new pile is that it seemed to be more organized and better arranged than the ones that they had spotted not too long ago. At last, this forced Mireya and the rest of the team to accept that these things were definitely not here by accident. Someone or something was definitely behind these strange sticks standing out there in the middle of nowhere. As they accepted the implications of what they were looking at, they were also forced to accept that they may not be alone out there. Something was definitely watching them, and it may not be for the better at all.
And it feels to me like we are right at Bigfoot's front step. We're getting close.
With that in mind, it became clear that they will only be able to do what they could with their limited resources available to them at that point in time. For example, they can only track anything that's out there to a certain capacity because they only have their flashlights with them, and it could only do so much in the darkness, such as the one they found themselves in this forest. Looking at the situation, they were becoming more and more wary about the situation at hand, especially as they figured that they may not be alone out there. In the end, they may be forced to contend that they may have even strayed into the territory that was marked out by the fabled creature that they had been tracking for some time. Sure, they may have felt that they may actually be on the right track, but they knew that they must take the utmost care as they pushed on. With the frigid cold air filling in their lungs, as well as the unnerving darkness that surrounded them in the forest, they pushed on even deeper into the forest to fulfill their mission. Sure, it may be thankless today, but maybe one day, this will lead to the discovery of the legendary cryptid that is Bigfoot. From attempting to draw out the fabled cryptid with the use of all the resources available to them, to the exploration of some strange structures in what seems to be the marked-out territory of the strange creature, here's how Dr. Mireya Mayor almost died during an encounter with the legendary cryptid that is Bigfoot.